Okay, we have previously worked with Álex de la Iglesia, and the production company wanted to get us involved in this project from the beginning. Álex de la Iglesia and our supervisor, Curro Muñoz, understand each other very well in creative and technical terms. Therefore, it was a very natural process.
I'm going to say it was a lot of fun. It took, from the creative point of view, it took a lot of prepping and patience. And also, I mean, the biggest challenge was to be always in the same page as the director and the art director. So we could plan from the start and make sure that whatever that we're shooting was the best for all of us creatively afterwards in the visual effects part of the production. I am tremendously biased in this series just because I worked on it for such a long time. I'm gonna say I probably have 3 favorites in the whole series. It's partly visually and partly because of the work we put into it. I'm gonna say 1 of 3, the magic mirror sequence. That's one of my favorites because it was really, really cool to put together and to plan and to figure out how to make it work visually and storytelling wise. The underground cathedral from episode 4, it's also one I'm pretty fond of. There was a ton of work put into that environment and it came out pretty sweet throughout the whole sequence. I think it holds pretty well. And then personally, there is this sequence in episode 1, which is from the top of a bell tower. We had to rebuild the whole town and the sky around it. Truth is, I come from a matte painting background and we work through camera projections for all that sequence. So personally, for me, it was a really interesting challenge to put together all that just using DMP and camera projection. So I'm actually really fond of that one too. I've been asked that question a couple of times, and I think one of the key things to understand it is 30 coins works like actually 80 feature films when it comes to visual effects. Each and every one of those 8 episodes had their separate environments and situations, and they don't necessarily continue throughout the rest of the series. So facing that meant that we had to put together 8 feature films at the same time. I think that's from the creative point of view was a rather interesting challenge, and from the organizational point of view, visual effects wise, and getting the team to work and develop all the visual effects was also, let's just say, it was pretty challenging sometimes.
30 Coins is like a unique show, working with one of the most important European director all over the world, and European especially for sure. Is a great challenge step by step. And from a production point of view, we need to develop a really deep pipeline to work with several departments. We focus on the 3D MP department, was Lucia working on it, just to build the most interesting environment we have in the show. The second one was the effects simulation, and we have just a very important focus on the composition. Was the bigger and huge team was working on it. For sure, it was like an 8-hour and a half movie, and we make the big goal. It was just delivery on time. It was a crazy stuff during the pandemic situation, all the shots, and it was huge and an amazing process.
I can start then. Actually, this is my second rodeo with Álex. I work as a matte painter for him a long time ago in another feature film of his. And when I got back to Spain, I and I started working on this movie, like a TV series, sorry, I knew from scratch that this was going to be a really cool project. Just by reading those scripts, you could tell this was Álex 100%. Like the worlds and the way everything was constructed felt really, really cool. And I gotta say, for me, it was actually a pretty good experience because he is a very visual director. So he working with him meant working visually, and he had a very clear idea of what he wanted. So of course, when someone has things so clearly, you have to actually figure out what he wants and then make it real. And sometimes it was really challenging to work through all that was in his mind and produce what he wanted. But I actually really enjoyed the process. And I gotta say, I did learn a lot. So for me, it was personally a really good experience. I can talk about it technically, but for me, there were two milestones when it came to figuring out this environment. The first one was working very, very, very closely with Álex and the art department to go through all the concept art and the look and the visuals he had in his mind. And we were lucky enough to actually jump on board at the very beginning of this project. So we worked with the art department to figure out how the shooting will be. And we had like a really close communication with Álex in terms of what he actually wanted, like how big, what style, everything. And that for me was very, very important because by the time we started building it, there was like a very clear concept of what we were going to build. And the other one was sheer work and a rather robust 3D department. Like we had to put together a very big set with a lot of detail. And most of it just came from scratch just because, you don't have a lot of underground cathedrals available. So we had to build everything. So I'll say a lot of development and a lot of hard work were like the two main points for this environment.
I would like just to add that we are really proud of this sequence because in all the show we have just the mystery in terms of storytelling, the other side of the wall. You can see another reality on the mirrors, and you can go just under to find new words that the director was looking for. So I think that we try to speak about the same language with the director, and it was really interesting this full CG environment to speak about this impossible words. Okay, we understood in the very beginning of the shows that it was a unique show, and we have just a very high standard to deliver for HBO. So we were looking in that moment for the Spanish talent that was working outside of country, because our main goal was to build a very international teams that from the big facilities all around the world, from Melbourne, London, Montreal, could work here in Spain. This is one of the most interesting hub for production, post-production here in Europe. And so we started to build a smaller studio, but like a boutique studio with all the knowledge and the workflow and the quality of the artists of the most important titles all around the world. So we had about until 100 artists from all over the world. I told you before, and it was a big challenge to recruit all this stuff.
I'm gonna answer about industry in Spain. In Spain, we are now living one of the sweetest moments in terms of content production. The volume of production is growing. The creative, professional, and technical talent is being much more visible and highly valued in other territories. Last year was a difficult year for everyone because of the pandemic, but we have been able to give a quick and effective response to continue developing and producing new content with protocols adapted to filming and post-production. Yeah, we hope that we can overcome this pandemic so we can continue giving and showing the best of ourselves.
I think that the last year was one of the worst and the best year in our industry. Probably, I remember at the very beginning, it was like an earthquake. It was a disaster because, as you know, in a studio, VFX studio, all the team is working inside the facility because of the security issues. And in that moment, all the team during the lockdown started work remotely with a very important IT effort, and everything it was new for us. So for the first challenge was to solve the technical issue to deliver the VFX shots, and especially to have the right compliance and security to transfer materials, to guarantees to our customers, this kind of security. And the second one was about the team, was the people. We had a very big challenge from emotional challenge in that situation, working from home. And we need to learn about new communication skills. We need to learn about using new tools. And we need to change our workflows. So probably it was like terrible in the very beginning, but in the end, I think that we have now a lot of learning, and now we are ready for the new era of VFX because everything is going to change now.
What's the future going to be like? Virtual production. I think that summarizes the whole thing. It's actually a pretty amazing time. We are going through huge shifts in the way we understand and produce visual effects at this point. And I think it's been in the making for a while, but it's finally exploding now with the whole pandemic and the fact that we cannot get together and shoot the way we used to anymore. And virtual production and real-time rendering are taking gigantic steps towards getting away from the realm of video games only and starting to be production ready and totally worth quality-wise to produce really first-class visual effects. And I think that's where the future is going. You know, I might be wrong because there is always some big technology like popping up in the visual effects industry, but this one seems pretty solid.
I totally agree. Virtual production could allow customers to invent impossible worlds and universe. And adding to this, probably now another trend is deep learning and AI. We know a lot about the aging process, and probably just to have a look on the next steps of our technology, we can think that deep learning and some tech process could be another challenge for the VFX department.